The moment your own family stops seeing you as family and starts seeing you as free labor, that's the moment everything changes. I should have known something was wrong when my mom called me 3 days before my sister Olivia's wedding and sounded way too cheerful. My mother, Linda Carter, never called me in the middle of a workday unless she wanted something. I was sitting at my desk in downtown Chicago, staring at spreadsheets and half-finished reports, when my phone lit up with her name. For a second I smiled. Maybe she wanted to talk about the wedding. Maybe, for once, she wanted me involved like an actual daughter. I answered, and her voice was almost sugary. "Emily, sweetheart, we've got something special for you at Olivia's wedding." My heart actually lifted. Special. That word stayed in my head. I'm 28 years old, and somehow I still fall for that hope every time. Growing up, Olivia always got the spotlight. She was 5 years older, prettier according to Mom, more successful according to Dad, and somehow every family event revolved around her. Birthdays, graduations, holidays, it was always Olivia first. I was the reliable one. The backup plan. The helper. But weddings were different, right? I thought maybe this time they'd ask me to give a speech. Maybe walk Mom down the aisle. Maybe even be maid of honor. Olivia had never officially asked anyone yet. I let myself imagine it for exactly 3 seconds. Then Mom said it. "We need you to watch the kids during the ceremony." I blinked. "What?" She laughed like it was obvious. "The kids, Emily. There'll be 12 of them. Your cousin's kids, Olivia's friends' kids, Aunt Rebecca's twins, all of them. Just during the ceremony and reception. 12? 12 kids? At a wedding with over 200 guests. You want me to babysit?" I asked. My voice came out flat. "Not babysit," Mom corrected. "Help out. That's the word my family always used when they wanted something unfair to sound reasonable. Help out. Cover for Olivia. Pick up the slack. Be useful." I leaned back in my chair and stared out the office window at the gray Chicago skyline. "Mom! I thought I was attending the wedding." She went quiet. For half a second, like the idea hadn't even occurred to her. "Of course you're attending. While helping." I almost laughed. "So I'm not in the bridal party?" "Well, honey," she said carefully, "Olivia wanted people who fit her aesthetic." That one hit harder than I expected. Fit her aesthetic. Like I was some out-of-place piece of furniture. "And watching the children is important," Mom added quickly. "You've always been so good with kids." That was true. But that wasn't the point. I looked at the invitation sitting on my kitchen counter at home. Ivory cardstock. Gold trim. My name printed like I mattered. But apparently I didn't. Apparently, I was just labor with a last name. "Who came up with this?" I asked. "It was a family decision," Mom said. That meant Olivia. That always meant Olivia. Before I could answer, another call came in. Olivia herself. Mom said, "Talk to your sister. She'll explain," and hung up. I stared at Olivia's name on the screen for a full 5 seconds before answering. Her voice was bright, excited, like she was calling about flowers or dresses. Mom told you, right? Isn't it perfect?" "Perfect." That word made my stomach twist. "Perfect?" I said. "You mean making me the unpaid babysitter?" Olivia sighed dramatically. "Come on. Don't make this a thing. It's just easier this way." "Easier for who?" I asked. "For everyone," she said. "Besides, you're not married, you don't have kids, and you're always saying how much you love them." There it was. The logic. Because my life looked different from hers, mine was less important. Because I wasn't walking down an aisle, I could spend 8 hours chasing toddlers in a ballroom. I could hear wedding music playing faintly in the background where she was, probably at another planning meeting I wasn't invited to. She said, "Honestly, Emily, this is your role. Just accept it." And that's when I realized this wasn't a request. It had never been a request. It was a trap. And the worst part? I hadn't even seen it coming. I sat there for a long time after Olivia hung up, staring at my phone like it had just confirmed something I had been trying not to believe for years. It was not just about babysitting. It was never just about babysitting. It was about where I stood in my family. Or maybe where I had always stood. At the very bottom. I left work that evening with a knot in my stomach and drove 45 minutes through rush hour traffic to my parents' house in Naperville because I needed to hear it face to face. I needed someone to tell me this was all some misunderstanding. The house was buzzing when I walked in. My mom was folding place cards at the kitchen island, my dad, Robert, was on the phone with the caterer, and Olivia sat at the table surrounded by bridal magazines and fabric swatches like she was the center of the universe, which, in this house, she pretty much was. Nobody looked surprised to see me. That was the first sign. My mom smiled and said, "Perfect timing. We were just talking about the children's seating." My stomach dropped. They had already built the plan around me. "So this is real?" I asked. Olivia looked up, confused by my tone. "Of course it is." I set my purse on the counter. "You want me to spend your entire wedding taking care of 12 kids?" Dad finally looked over. "Emily, do not make this bigger than it is." Bigger than it is. That was his favorite phrase any time I had a problem with being treated unfairly. I looked at Olivia. I thought I would at least be part of the ceremony. Olivia gave me this little shrug like she was explaining basic math. "You are part of it. Just not up front." My mother stepped in fast. "Sweetheart, Olivia has bridesmaids already. You know how these things work." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "No, actually, I do not. Because nobody told me anything." That made the room quiet. Olivia crossed her arms. "Emily, we have been planning this for 8 months. 8 months. My chest tightened. And nobody thought to mention I was the designated babysitter? My dad sighed. "We assumed you would understand." There it was again. Assumed. Decided. Assigned. All without me. My mom reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "It is because you are responsible," she said softly. "The kids trust you." I looked around at them, really looked at them, and saw how comfortable they were with this. How normal it felt to them. Olivia had her maid of honor, her college friends, her spa weekend, her bridal brunch, her photographer, her custom dress. And me? I got 12 sticky hands and juice boxes. "Who is watching the kids during the reception?" I asked. Olivia smiled. "You. And dinner? You can eat with them. And dancing?" She frowned like I was missing the point. "Emily, it is one day." One day. But it was never one day. It was every Thanksgiving where I cooked while Olivia drank wine with guests. Every Christmas where I wrapped everyone's presents because Mom was tired. Every birthday party where I cleaned up while everyone else celebrated. It was years of being useful instead of valued. Then my cousin Sarah walked in carrying bridesmaid dresses. She stopped when she saw me. "Oh good," she said casually. "I was wondering if Olivia told you about the kid room." Kid room. There was a whole room. Planned. Decorated. Built around my role. Sarah kept talking. "It is actually genius. They rented that little conference room next to the ballroom. You will have coloring books, snacks, even nap mats." My face went hot. They had planned my prison down to the crayons. Olivia smiled proudly. "See? We thought of everything." That was the moment it hit me hardest. Everyone knew. The whole family. 4 months. And I was the only one left out, because if they had told me sooner, I might have said no. I stood there, surrounded by people who shared my blood but somehow never saw me, and for the first time in my life, I stopped wondering how to make them understand. Instead, I started wondering what would happen if I simply stopped playing my part. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying everything from my parents' house, every look, every casual assumption, every piece of this plan they had built around me without asking. By morning, I convinced myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was just wedding stress making everyone thoughtless. Maybe if I showed up the next day for Olivia's bridal fitting, things would feel different. That was the lie I told myself during the 40-minute drive to the bridal boutique in Oak Brook. The moment I walked in, I knew I had been wrong. Olivia stood in front of a giant mirror wearing her white silk gown, surrounded by her bridesmaids, all laughing and sipping iced coffee like something out of a magazine. My mother spotted me and waved. "Emily, there you are." Not one person said I looked nice. Not one person said they were glad I came. Olivia just turned, smiled, and said, "Perfect. We need help carrying the gift bags." "Of course." "Not sister. Not guest. Assistant." I picked up the bags and followed them into the lounge area. There were 6 bridesmaids, all dressed in matching pale pink outfits for the fitting, taking photos and talking about the wedding weekend schedule. Spa appointments, champagne breakfast, hair styling, private bridal dinner. Every event had been planned down to the hour. I sat quietly, listening. Nobody had mentioned me once. Then I noticed the printed itinerary sitting on the table. I picked it up. Friday, rehearsal dinner. Saturday morning, bridal suite prep. Noon ceremony. 2 o'clock photos. 3 o'clock cocktail hour. 4 o'clock reception. Then I saw it. In small letters at the bottom. Child Supervision Coordinator, Emily. I froze. Not even my name as family. A job title. Olivia saw me reading it and laughed. "Cute, right?" I looked at her. "You actually printed this?" She shrugged. "It helps keep things organized." One of her bridesmaids, Jessica, frowned. "Wait, you are not in the wedding?" Before I could answer, Olivia smiled and said, "No, Emily is handling the children. She is way better at that stuff." Jessica looked uncomfortable. Oh. That little word hit harder than any insult. Because even a stranger could see how wrong it was. My mother jumped in quickly. "It is a huge help. Families have to work together." I stayed quiet. Then Olivia stepped closer and handed me a garment bag. "Here." I opened it. Inside was a plain beige dress. Simple. Cheap. No style. No effort. I stared at it. "What is this?" Olivia smiled like she was doing me a favor. "Your dress for the wedding." I looked at her bridesmaids in satin custom dresses worth at least $300 each. Mine looked like something from a clearance rack. "I already bought a dress," I said. Olivia's smile disappeared. "That dark blue one?" she asked. "No. It is too attention-grabbing." I blinked. "Attention-grabbing?" She lowered her voice. "Emily, you are going to be around kids all day. They will spill on you. It makes more sense if you wear something plain." "Plain. Disposable. Like my role. Like me." My mother nodded. "Olivia is right. Save your nice dress for another occasion." I could feel every pair of eyes on me. My face burned, but I refused to let them see it. That was when Olivia leaned in and said the thing that broke something in me. "Honestly, Em, this way you can finally contribute without making things complicated." Contribute. Like I had spent my whole life taking instead of giving. I thought about all the birthdays I organized, the holidays I cleaned, the times I loaned money to my parents when Dad's business struggled. The weekends I spent helping Olivia move apartments. The hours babysitting for cousins without ever charging $1. And somehow I was still the selfish one if I said no. I folded the beige dress carefully and handed it back to her. "I will think about it," I said. Olivia smiled, satisfied, like she had won. But as I walked out of that boutique into the cold afternoon air, I realized something important. They were not just asking me to babysit anymore. They were stripping me down piece by piece, making sure everyone at that wedding saw exactly where I ranked. And for the first time, I was no longer thinking about how to survive their humiliation. I was starting to think about how to let them drown in their own plan. I spent the next day pretending everything was normal. I went to work, answered emails, sat through meetings, and smiled at people who had no idea my own family had turned me into unpaid staff for a wedding I was supposed to attend as a sister. But inside, something had shifted. For the first time, I stopped trying to convince myself they did not mean it. They did. Every single part of it. By Friday evening, it was time for the rehearsal dinner. My mother texted me 3 times making sure I would be there by 6 o'clock sharp. Not because she wanted me there, but because she needed me there. That difference was becoming clearer by the hour. The dinner was at a private Italian restaurant in downtown Naperville, one of those places with dim lights, expensive wine, and white tablecloths that made everything feel polished. I parked across the street and sat in my car for 10 minutes before going in, trying to talk myself into staying calm. When I walked inside, I immediately saw it. A long table in the center of the room, decorated with candles and flowers, with little name cards at every seat. Olivia was at the center beside her fiancé, Ethan Walker, laughing with guests. My parents sat nearby. Bridesmaids, groomsmen, cousins, family friends. Everyone had a place. I scanned the table once. Then twice. My name was not there. My mother spotted me and waved me over. "Emily, honey, you are here." I forced a smile. "Where am I sitting?" She looked confused for half a second, then pointed toward the back corner of the restaurant. A small table. Separate from everyone else. And sitting there already were 4 children under the age of 7, each with crayons and half-finished breadsticks. I stared at her. "You cannot be serious." Mom lowered her voice. "It is just easier this way. They are already comfortable with you." Comfortable. Like I was furniture again. Olivia walked over in her designer cream-colored dress, glowing with attention. "Oh good," she said. "You found your spot." I looked at her. "My spot?" She smiled. "It makes sense. The kids need supervision, and this way they will not disrupt the adults." The adults. I was 28 years old, and somehow not considered one. Ethan stood beside her, awkwardly adjusting his tie. He gave me a weak smile but said nothing. That told me everything I needed to know about him. Olivia leaned in closer and said with a laugh, "Think of it as your warm-up for tomorrow." Then she turned back to her table like it was no big deal. I sat at that tiny corner table, surrounded by kids asking for extra fries and juice, while the rest of my family toasted Olivia and Ethan with champagne. I watched from 20 feet away like I was a hired worker. Not once did anyone ask me to join. Not once did Olivia mention me in her speech about family. Then halfway through dinner, my cousin Jake stood up to give a toast. He smiled and raised his glass. "To Olivia, the golden girl, and to Emily for taking one for the team tomorrow." The whole room laughed. Laughed. Like it was funny. Like my humiliation was entertainment. I felt my face burn, but I kept my head down. Then Olivia, half laughing herself, said loud enough for everyone to hear, "At least Emily is useful for once." That was it. That was the moment. The exact second something inside me shut off. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. Years of trying to earn love from people who only valued convenience. Years of showing up, helping, sacrificing, believing eventually they would see me differently. But they never would. Because they did not want a daughter or a sister. They wanted a backup plan. I looked around the room. Some people laughed. Some looked uncomfortable. Jessica, one of the bridesmaids, would not even make eye contact with me. Even she knew it was cruel. I finished my glass of water, stood up quietly, and walked toward the exit. My mother called after me. "Emily, where are you going?" I turned back, smiled for the first time all night, and said, "Home. I need rest for tomorrow." Olivia smirked like she thought she had won. But as I drove home under the cold streetlights, I realized something they did not. Tomorrow was still coming. And so was my decision. I got home just after 10 that night, kicked off my heels, and sat in the dark on my couch without turning on a single light. The silence felt strange after hours of forced smiles, clinking glasses, and laughter that had cut deeper than anyone in that room realized. Olivia's words kept replaying in my head. At least Emily is useful for once. I stared at my living room wall and realized something that felt almost embarrassing to admit. I had spent my entire life trying to prove I was useful because I thought usefulness would earn love. But all it had earned me was more work. More sacrifice. More expectations. Never respect. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Mom. Do not be late tomorrow. The children arrive at 11. Not are you okay? Not thank you? For tonight. Just instructions. I laughed out loud. It was the kind of laugh that comes when something finally becomes so absurd you cannot pretend anymore. I opened my laptop. At first, I did not even know what I was doing. I just wanted to breathe. To look at anything except wedding schedules and family group texts. Then, almost without thinking, I opened a travel site. One listing caught my eye immediately. A luxury lakefront resort in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. 2 hours away. Spa access. Private balcony. Breakfast included. No kids. No family. No Olivia. I stared at it for a full minute. Then I looked at the date. Check-in Saturday. Check-out Sunday. The exact wedding weekend. My finger hovered over the booking button. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt calm. Like for the first time in years, I was choosing myself before anyone else had the chance to choose for me. I booked it. 1 king suite. Lakeview. $940. More money than I usually spent on myself, but less than the emotional cost of another family humiliation. The confirmation email hit my inbox 30 seconds later. It felt like freedom. Then I did something even better. I turned off my phone. Not permanently. Just enough to stop the endless wedding updates. The next morning, I woke up at 7. Wedding day. The city outside my apartment was quiet, the sunlight soft through the blinds. Somewhere across town, Olivia was probably getting her hair done, drinking champagne, getting praised like royalty. Somewhere, 12 kids were getting dressed in tiny, uncomfortable shoes, ready to be dropped into my lap like human luggage. And for the first time, none of it was my problem. I packed a small overnight bag. Sweaters. Jeans. My favorite book. My blue dress, the one Olivia said was too attention-grabbing. I brought it just because it made me smile. By 8:30, I was on the road heading north. The highway was clear, and with every mile marker, the knot in my chest loosened. 20 miles? 40. 60. By the time I crossed into Wisconsin, I felt lighter than I had in years. Around 10:15, I turned my phone back on for a moment. 11 missed calls. 8 texts. All from family. The first was from Mom. Where are you? The second from Olivia. Do not do this today. Then Dad. The kids are arriving. Then my cousin Sarah. People are asking for you. I smiled. Asking for me. Not because they miss me. Because their plan was breaking. I turned the phone back off. When I pulled into the resort parking lot at 11:30, the lake was shining under the sun like glass. Calm. Beautiful. The exact opposite of what was happening back in Naperville. I checked in, and the woman at the front desk handed me my room key with a warm smile. Looks like you picked the perfect weekend for a getaway. I almost laughed. She had no idea. I walked into my suite, dropped my bag, and stepped onto the balcony overlooking the water. The air smelled fresh and cold, and for the first time in a long time, I could hear my own thoughts. No demands. No pressure. No voices telling me my role. My phone stayed silent in my bag, but I knew it would not stay that way for long. Because somewhere, right at that moment, 12 children were probably arriving at a wedding with no babysitter. And for once, the chaos was not following me. It was waiting for them. I spent the first hour at the resort doing absolutely nothing, and somehow it felt like the most powerful thing I had ever done. I sat on the balcony wrapped in a thick white robe, holding hot coffee and staring out at Lake Geneva while the cold morning air moved across the water. It was quiet. Peaceful. Nobody needed me. Nobody expected anything. That alone felt strange. Around noon, I finally turned my phone back on. The screen lit up so fast it almost froze. 23 missed calls. 37 text messages. My stomach tightened, but not from guilt. From curiosity. I opened the family group chat first. Chaos. Complete chaos. My mother had written at least 10 messages in all capital letters. Where are you? Emily, answer your phone now. The ceremony starts in 40 minutes. Olivia had sent voice messages. My cousin Sarah wrote, "This is bad." Jake wrote, "The twins just knocked over the dessert table." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Then another text came through from my father. "This is unacceptable." Of course, that was his first concern. Not why I left. Not what pushed me to this. Just inconvenience. I leaned back in the chair and read through the rest. Apparently the plan had fallen apart the second I did not show up. The 12 children had arrived with their parents expecting me to take over. Instead, they found a locked conference room and no babysitter. My mother tried to juggle them while also greeting guests. Dad was running between the ceremony space and the lobby. Olivia was furious because half her bridal prep was delayed. Ethan's side of the family was already asking questions. Then Sarah sent me a photo. It was the ballroom. Flower petals scattered across the floor. One little boy standing on a chair near the wedding cake with frosting on his hands. Another kid crying in the corner. 2 girls running in circles through the guest tables. It looked like pure disorder. And right in the background, Olivia in her wedding dress, face red, yelling at someone. I stared at that photo for a long time. Not because I felt bad. Because it perfectly captured what had always been true. The moment I stopped holding their mess together, everyone could finally see how much of their peace depended on my sacrifice. My phone rang. "Mom." I answered this time. The second I picked up, she exploded. "Where are you?" I kept my voice calm. "Taking the weekend off." Silence. Then, "Are you out of your mind?" I looked at the lake. "No. I think this is the clearest I have ever been." Her breathing was sharp. "You left 12 children without supervision." I almost laughed. "No, Mom. Their parents are there. That is not the point." "Actually," I said, "that is exactly the point." She went quiet. I could hear noise in the background. Kids screaming. Adults talking over each other. Somewhere far away, Olivia shouting. Mom lowered her voice. "Emily, this is your sister's wedding." "And I am her sister," I said. "Not her employee." She snapped back. "You are ruining this day." I took a deep breath. "No. I just stopped letting you ruin mine." I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From years of words I had never said finally being real. 10 minutes later, Sarah called. I answered because, unlike the others, she had at least looked uncomfortable when all this started. "Emily," she said carefully, "it is bad here." "How bad?" I asked. She exhaled. "Olivia is 2 hours behind. One kid spilled juice on her second dress. The photographer is charging overtime. Aunt Rebecca is threatening to leave because nobody will watch her twins." I smiled. The dominoes were falling. Sarah hesitated. "Did you know this would happen?" I looked out at the water again. I knew they built the whole day on the assumption that I would accept being used. She was quiet. Then she said softly, "A lot of people are starting to realize that too." That mattered more than I expected. Not because I needed validation, but because for the first time, the truth was visible. Not hidden behind smiles and family tradition. Visible. I ended the call and turned my phone face down on the table. Somewhere back in Naperville, Olivia's perfect day was unraveling. And for the first time in my life, I was not there to save it. By late afternoon, the wedding was still happening, but according to Sarah, it barely resembled the perfect event Olivia had spent 8 months planning. I stayed at the resort spa for most of the day, letting hot steam and silence replace years of stress, but every time I checked my phone, there was another update. It felt surreal, like watching a storm from behind glass. Safe. Distant. Not my responsibility. Around 3 o'clock, Sarah sent another photo. This one made me stop walking. The ceremony was finally underway, but it looked chaotic. One little boy was lying across the aisle crying because he wanted his mother. 2 girls were arguing over flower petals near the front row. A toddler had wandered near the altar, and Ethan's best man was awkwardly trying to guide him back. Olivia was standing there in her gown, jaw tight, smile forced so hard it looked painful. The caption from Sarah said, "She has restarted the vows twice." I stared at it, and almost could not believe it. Olivia had always been obsessed with appearances. Perfection was everything to her. Her dress. Her photos. Her image. And now in front of 200 guests, all of it was slipping. Not because I sabotaged her. Because she built her perfect day on top of me and never thought I might step away. Then came the videos. Jake, apparently enjoying the drama more than helping, sent clips from the reception. In one, 2 children were running under tables while servers tried to carry plates. In another, one of the twins had pulled half the tablecloth off the dessert station, knocking cupcakes sideways. Nothing dangerous, just chaos. Loud, messy, uncontrolled chaos. In the background of one clip, I saw my mother chasing a little girl in high heels, her hair falling apart. My father looked exhausted, tie loosened, trying to calm a screaming 6-year-old. The people who had called me dramatic were now living the exact reality they had assigned to me. Then Sarah called. Her voice sounded breathless. "You are not going to believe this." I sat down by the lake. "What now?" "Olivia is furious. She locked herself in the bridal suite for 20 minutes because one of the kids spilled fruit punch near her train." I closed my eyes. "Near it?" Sarah laughed nervously. "Yes. Not even on it. Near it." That was Olivia. It was never about what happened. It was about control. "And Ethan?" I asked. Sarah paused. "Honestly? He looks embarrassed. His parents are asking why the family did not hire childcare." That hit differently. Because that question had a simple answer. They could have hired childcare. Easily. Olivia's floral arch alone probably cost $3,000. The venue was at least $20,000. The photographer, the catering, the custom dress, the live band. This was not about money. It was about assuming I would do it for free. That was what stung the most. Not that they needed help. That they never saw my time as valuable. Sarah lowered her voice. "People are talking, Emily." "About what?" "About how strange it was that you were expected to handle all 12 kids by yourself. Some of Ethan's relatives think it was cruel." I let that sink in. For years I thought maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe this was normal family behavior, and I was the problem for feeling hurt. But hearing outsiders see it so clearly made something settle inside me. I had not been wrong. I had just been conditioned to accept less. Then Sarah said something that surprised me. "Aunt Rebecca said she never agreed to this. She thought there would be a hired nanny." I sat up. "What?" "Apparently Olivia told several parents there would be professional childcare." I laughed, but it was sharp this time. Of course. Olivia had not even told the truth. She sold me as part of the wedding package like unpaid staff. That changed everything. This was bigger than humiliation now. This was deception. Sarah sighed. "Mom is blaming you for all of it." I looked out at the lake as the sun started dropping lower, turning the water gold. "That is fine," I said. "Because for the first time, they cannot hide what they did." I hung up and sat there in the quiet, knowing something had shifted permanently. Not just at the wedding. In the family. The image they had built was cracking. And when cracks start showing, the truth always finds a way through. By Sunday morning, the quiet at the resort felt almost unreal compared to the storm waiting for me back home. I checked out just after 9, carrying my bag and a strange kind of peace I had never felt before. For once, I had chosen myself, and the world had not ended. But my phone told a different story. 42 missed calls. More than 60 messages. Most from my family. A few from cousins. 2 from unknown numbers I guessed belonged to Ethan's relatives. I sat in my car before starting the engine and opened the messages. Olivia's were the worst. You ruined everything. Do not ever speak to me again. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. My mother's were colder. Your father is devastated. I hope you are proud of yourself. Family does not abandon family. That one almost made me laugh. Family. The word they used whenever they wanted obedience. Never when it came to respect. Halfway through the drive back to Chicago, Sarah called. I answered. Her voice was calmer this time. Are you coming home? I am on my way. She hesitated. They want to talk. Of course they do. Sarah was quiet for a moment, then said something that caught me off guard. Emily, a lot came out after you left. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. What do you mean? Ethan found out the truth. I frowned. About what? About the childcare plan. He thought Olivia hired a professional service. His parents did too. They are upset. I stared at the road ahead. That explained the unknown numbers. Sarah continued. Apparently, when Ethan realized there was no sitter and that you were supposed to do it alone, he asked Olivia why. She told him you agreed. There it was. Another lie. My chest felt cold. I never agreed. I know, Sarah said softly. And now everyone knows. That mattered. Not because I wanted revenge anymore, but because truth changes everything. I got home around noon and barely had time to set my bag down before my mother called again. This time I answered. Come to the house, she said. No hello. No asking if I was home safe. Just an order. I drove there an hour later. The house felt heavier than usual, like all the tension from the wedding had followed everyone back. My father sat at the kitchen table, arms crossed. My mother stood by the sink. Olivia was there too, still wearing traces of the wedding weekend on her face, but not the glow she had imagined. Her eyes were red, her expression hard. Ethan stood near the doorway, silent. The second I walked in, Olivia snapped. How could you do this? I put my purse down calmly. Do what? She laughed sharply. Do not act innocent. You vanished. You humiliated me. I looked at her. No, Olivia. I stepped away from being used. My father slammed his hand on the table. Enough. You left your family stranded. I turned to him. I left a job I never agreed to. Olivia stepped closer. You knew those kids needed someone. Their parents were there, I said. And according to Sarah, you told them there would be professional childcare. Ethan looked at Olivia immediately. The room went still. My mother blinked. What? Olivia's face changed for half a second. Small, but enough. Ethan spoke for the first time. Is that true? Olivia crossed her arms. It was supposed to be Emily. I shook my head. Without asking me. Without paying me. Without even treating me like a guest. Ethan looked stunned. My father tried to cut in, but I did not stop this time. Years of silence broke all at once. Do you know what hurt the most? I said. Not the babysitting. Not the beige dress. Not the kids' table. It was realizing none of you saw anything wrong with it. My mother looked shaken. Olivia rolled her eyes. You are being dramatic. I laughed once. No. I am being honest. For years I have been the backup. The helper. The one you call when things fall apart. But the second I stop carrying your mess, suddenly I am the villain. Ethan looked at Olivia like he was seeing her differently. And for the first time, I saw something I had never expected. Doubt. Not in me. In her. And I realized this conversation was about to crack open far more than just one ruined wedding. The room stayed silent after I said it. For once, nobody had an easy answer. My father stared at the table like he was trying to find a way to make this my fault, but even he could feel the truth sitting there between us. Ethan was the first one to move. He looked at Olivia and asked quietly, "You told me Emily volunteered." Olivia folded her arms tighter. "She always helps." Ethan did not blink. "That is not the same thing." That sentence changed everything. Because for the first time, someone inside the family system said out loud what I had been trying to explain for years. Olivia looked at him, shocked that he was not automatically on her side. "Are you serious right now?" she snapped. "She ruined our wedding." Ethan shook his head. "No. The wedding fell apart because there was no plan. Because you assumed your sister would carry it." Olivia laughed bitterly. "Oh, please. It was one day." I looked at her and said the words I should have said years ago. "It was never one day." My mother looked at me, confused, almost hurt. "Emily." But I kept going. "It was every holiday where I cooked while Olivia celebrated. Every time I cleaned up after family parties. Every emergency where you called me because I was dependable, but never important enough to stand beside you when things were good." My father frowned. "That is not fair." "No," I said. "What is not fair is treating me like labor and calling it love." My voice stayed calm, but it felt like years of weight were finally leaving my chest. My mother sat down slowly, like she was hearing her own choices for the first time. Olivia rolled her eyes again, but this time it looked weaker. Less certain. Ethan looked at her and said, "Did you really tell parents there would be hired childcare?" She hesitated. That hesitation was enough. Ethan exhaled and rubbed his face. "Olivia, that is not okay." She snapped back. "So now you are taking her side?" He answered in a way that surprised everyone. "I am taking the side of basic respect." The room went cold. My father stood up. "This family is falling apart over one misunderstanding." I looked at him. "No. It is falling apart because nobody ever cared how I felt until it affected them." That landed hard. Nobody argued. Because they could not. Then something happened I never expected. My mother started crying. Quietly at first. She looked at me and said, "I did not realize." I believed that. Not because it excused anything. But because people like my mother rarely see the damage when the system works for them. "That is the problem," I said. "You never looked." Olivia grabbed her purse and stormed out, furious that the attention had shifted away from her, even now. Ethan stayed behind for a second, looking exhausted. Before leaving, he turned to me and said, "I am sorry." That simple apology felt heavier than everything else said that day. Because it was honest. Weeks passed after that. Olivia barely spoke to me. Word spread through the family about what happened at the wedding, but not the version she wanted. People knew the truth now. Cousins started calling me, not to blame me, but to admit they had noticed the pattern for years. Aunt Rebecca apologized for assuming I had agreed. Sarah told me Ethan and Olivia were already fighting constantly. Trust, once cracked, does not repair easily. My parents changed too, slowly. My mother called more, but for the first time, she asked how I was instead of what I could do. My father stayed distant, but even he stopped expecting me to fix things. And me? I changed the most. I stopped saying yes. Automatically. I stopped carrying guilt that never belonged to me. A month later, I wore that blue dress Olivia said was too attention-grabbing to a friend's engagement party in the city. I looked in the mirror that night, and barely recognized the woman staring back. Not because I looked different, but because I finally saw someone who understood her own worth. That wedding was supposed to remind me of my place. Instead, it taught me I never had to stay in it. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away and let people face the mess they created without you.